All right. It looks like we are officially live with yet another ImpEx Distillery deep dive event. Hopefully, those that have been following these events have been enjoying them thus far. This one, if you've been watching these, you know that we've been doing them mostly on Wednesdays. But this time around, here we are on a Sunday. And that's in part because the two gentlemen that I'm about to bring on are calling in from Tel Aviv, Israel, which, our previous guests we've called them in from the UK, which is a 5-hour difference. But Tel Aviv, I think, is about a 74-hour difference. It's something like that. It's a much larger difference. It's 7 hours. And so 5 o'clock on a Sunday ends up being midnight on a Monday for these two chaps. So with me, whom I'm about to introduce, is Tal and Tomer from the Milk and Honey Distillery. Two absolutely lovely guys. You're going to learn a lot. You're going to laugh a lot. And hopefully you've got enough whiskey on hand to enjoy while learning about Milk and Honey and their distillery. So without further ado, let me bring in Tal and Tomer. Oh, hello. Like magic. Hello.
Hi, Joshua.
How are you, gents?
We are great. Thank you. How are you?
Trying to stay awake.
The whiskey will help, right?
Yeah. We had enough coffee.
Okay. Let's see. We should, later on in the conversation, we should probably talk about caffeinated whiskeys for these really late Zoom and StreamYard events.
I'll tell you one thing. When we're off camera, we're going to tell you about the little experience we're doing right now with a kind of a coffee thing with whiskey. So, but it's an experiment, so we need to talk about it later on.
Okay, loud and clear. I love that tease.
You've been here in Tel Aviv, so you know our coffee is different.
Yes.
No. So we'll talk about it later.
Yeah. So thank you guys for staying up. Well, Tomer, I know you took a little nap, so you're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
Right here. You see the cushion.
Really? You slept in your tasting room?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Well, thank you guys for joining me, and thanks to everybody who's signing on. We have people coming in from both YouTube and Facebook, and comments are coming in. And as you all are watching, if you have any questions that come up, please put them in the chat. We'll do our very best to get to all of them. But before we get to the questions and the answers part of this, single malt whiskey in Israel. How is this a thing? Talk to us about where this idea came from, because now, here in 2020, this makes sense, right? Whiskey coming out of Israel simply makes sense. And you guys aren't the only distillery now producing whiskey in Israel, though I know you were the first. But 5, 6, 8, 10 years ago, no one would have ever thought whiskey out of Israel. So could you give us a little bit of a history as to where the idea came from and how you and the team looked to get things started?
So I think, first of all, if you look at the Israeli way of thinking, is there's no boundaries. We can actually do everything. I think when I was a kid in 1977, the first Israeli basketball team from Tel Aviv won the European Championship. Now, we're not good at basketball. We're not even in Europe. So just and if you look at that, this is in a nutshell. So if I'm looking back at 2012, there's like five guys from the high tech industry. You know, Tel Aviv is and Israel is high tech nation, and Tel Aviv is a buzzing city. And I think that those guys, those five guys, and of course the most dominant of them, and now is the sole owner and the founder of the distillery, Gal Kalstein. He's an entrepreneur. He comes from the industry, not from the whiskey industry, but from the high tech industry, and he fell in love with whiskey. And I think that he told me later on that instead of buying a glass of milk, he bought the whole cow. So instead of buying a case of whiskey, he went and opened a distillery. So he wanted, I think, to be a pioneer, like in everything we want to do, and to open the first Israeli single malt distillery, which was, nothing to do with what happened then in Israel, and nothing to do with our, let's say, characteristics of a country or a nation. We don't have a patient as a nation, and whiskey, you need a patient. The good thing about that is our climate, but we're going to talk about it later. So those guys, and of course Gal, they decided to be pioneers and start their own whiskey distillery, and then they had actually to hire the right person. So this guy was actually back then. I was in the first meeting, but Tomer was the first master distiller together with Dr.
Actually,
Jim
the
Swan.
first master distiller
Was Dr. Jim
Dr.
Swan.
Jim Swan. So first,
Yes.
we did first is to call Dr. Jim Swan. That was, I think, the biggest expert of producing whiskey in hot climate like we have in Israel. He's the one behind other distilleries from Taiwan or India, or and he has so they called Jim Swan and joined him on board. And what Jim Swan did first is to help us plan everything and to teach us how to produce whiskey in hot climate. The rest is history. We are here producing whiskey.
When they were interviewing Israeli guys to be the master distiller, they picked the one that looked the most Scottish from
Or
all the
Irish.
Israelis, or Irish. So,
Yeah, I think it's Tomer O'Goran, right? I think that's how
yeah,
that's your full name.
something like that. McGoran.
So that's okay. So you had Gal who started the distillery, but needed help, right? He came from the tech world and he needed help. Was the team hired first, or did he reach out to Dr. Jim Swan before that and then started to assemble the team?
No, so first was our first CEO called Nir, and he called Jim Swan and joined him. But all the product, the planning of the distillery and the
Recipes and everything.
yeah, the construction. Yeah.
Oh, it's too late.
All the
We
construction.
forgot some words.
No, but all the construction took place with only two employees here at the distillery, beside the owners. So we didn't have any team or things like that. First distillation took place with only two persons.
And I can tell you when Gal started. Actually, I was in the first meeting, so of course we drank everything he had in his home, and then we started talking about opening a distillery. Now there's five guys and me and another guy, and between two Jews you have like 7 opinions. So just think about how many opinions and words were in this room. It's a wonder something came out of this idea, but I think that as soon as they decided to go for it, as Gal decided to go for it, then they hired Nir and then Eitan afterwards. But then Dr. Jim Swan and of course Tomer, things started to run and things started to go. And then I think still when Gal comes here like once in two weeks or something like that, still I think he's amazed how big it is, and it really it's working. It's not like another idea that let's think about it. It's working and it's big and it's a big operation right now. I'm sure he didn't think it's going to be that size.
Amazing, yeah. So I want to talk about production a little bit. You touched on it. You touched on it a bit, being in a hot weather. Given your climate, you're in a hot weather country, and so of course
the air condition is on, and we're short sleeves, so it's
oh,
winter.
there you go. I know that tasting room well. It's like an oasis when you walk in. You just can stop sweating. So I want to talk about production in a little bit, or I want to talk about production now. But before I do, I see you guys poured some whiskey. I just poured a whiskey. I want to share with everybody what we have in our glass. Or I assume you guys have the same thing in your glass. So we've got the M&H Classic, which is just an absolute lovely, everyday, any day kind of whiskey. Can you guys take us through this whiskey a little bit, and then we can talk about some of your production?
Yeah, of course. So Classic is the entry level for our portfolio, and we launched it at the beginning of this year when we could fly.
Yeah, actually the launching was we launched it in Amsterdam even before Israel. In Amsterdam, it was Whiskey Weekend in January, and then our last flight was in February. We launched the whiskey in Paris, and then since then we're locked down here.
So I like to call it like a table whiskey. For me, it's supposed to be really well drinkable and easy drinking with a lot of vanilla and caramel notes. Comes mainly from ex-bourbon casks, and it's made on around 75% ex-bourbon casks, and then we have around 20% STR casks. So that's what makes it really nice and easy drinking. Vanilla caramel note, and then a little bit of spiciness and red fruits comes from the STR cask, and well balanced.
Well balanced, yeah. I think that if you look at, we don't like to call it a house style, but Tomer style is really trying to be balanced in every style you're doing. So this one is as the main one. It's not exactly an entry level, because entry level is something we're like really not usually you don't call entry level in the craft distillery, but this is a table whiskey or a whiskey for everyone. So mostly it's ex-bourbon, a bit of STR red wine cask, but I think everyone can drink it. Everyone can relate to this one.
It's a whiskey to bring their family to a holiday.
But I think you need another sip. When you first sip, it's 46 ABV. So because we don't chill filter. We don't chill filter anything. And if you don't chill filter, you have to keep it 46 and above, because when it's cold, it's getting some sediments inside. We don't haziness, yeah. And when we don't chill filter it, I think you get more and more original taste. And this is why we do that. And it's 46. So when you taste it for the first time, sometimes it can be like strong or just a bit harsh. But second taste, you're gonna feel what we were aiming for. Very gentle one, vanilla, very warm mouth feel, and I think it has like a coating feeling on the upper side of your palate, and this is something to do with the way we reproduce it, actually, the cut and the angles.
Another thing, I'm sorry for those who doesn't like ice in their whiskey, but 1 kilo of ice will open it slowly, and it will be a whiskey to walk with, and it develops in the glass, and it's really really nice.
Especially in this climate. Yeah. There you go.
So would you call this the milk and honey DNA? Would you say things kind of grow from this? Is this your basis?
Well, I think the milk and honey DNA comes first from our new make, which is really fruity and malty.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you can
And
oily, and you can feel it in the classic, especially. You'll see in the next whiskies that another cask or playing with more casks will disappear just a little bit the distillery character, but it's still there. It's based on the same new make, so it's still there, but it gets more and more interesting and complex.
So if we talk about the second distillation, the cut is very high and very short. So we cut it between 80 and 70% alcohol. So it's an average of 73% when it goes out at the heart. Of course, the tails go into the spirit container and the low end container, and gets another distillation with the second batch. But very high, very, very short, and then the line arms from the still to the condenser goes in 45 degrees angle down. So almost no reflux. So you get very oily and very fruity, and some pastry notes characteristics of a new make. And I think you can feel it in this one.
Oh yeah. I always talk about mouthfeel, and this is something that I find with milk and honey, regardless of the spirit. And of course, I've had your standard bottlings and tasted many cask samples, and even at 63, 64, 66% alcohol, your whiskeys retain such a good oily mouthfeel. It's really remarkable. It's a really nice texture.
And it's the oils that come from the good spirit and not from the tails, not from the oils of the tail. It's different. And I think that this is why we like it. I like the new make as a drink. So, other than I'm an alcoholic.
So single malt production in Israel. So you have this old style of making things in a somewhat new country. That to me, not that new country, but new again country, if you will. That kind of speaks to me a bit of your story, right?
I think that Tomer is going to talk about the production, but the story about us is we have, Israel is an ancient country with a new beginning, and we didn't have any whiskey production, or actually distillation was invented here originally. Alabics and the Muslims actually started distillations. The only problem that they stopped drinking. But if we're talking about that, we have wine culture here. But if we look at Israel, and even where we're from, Tel Aviv, Tel is old city ruins, and Aviv is spring, it's new. So it's old and new. This is us. We're doing a very traditional way of, like a Scotch whiskey distillation. Tomer's going to talk about that, but with all kind of very innovative and crazy ideas of maturing, of casks, of whatever we can do. So I think the mix is just it's our DNA. It's very Tel Avivian.
No, but going back to regulations, and because we are the first distillery or whiskey distillery in Israel, so we had no regulations for whiskey production or what can be called whiskey. So that led us to voluntarily decide that we are following the SWA, the Scotch rules, in all aspects of single malt whiskey production.
Mm-hmm.
So we are basically doing double pot still distillation. It's not a rule, but most of the Scotch distilleries doing it. And then minimum, I think the most important thing is minimum three years in a cask to be called whiskey. And we didn't have to do it by the law because
There's no law.
there is no law in Israel for that. But we voluntarily decided to follow these rules.
I think because from day one we understood and we decided to go global. Because the Israeli market is small, it's a small market, and then Israelis takes time to drink something local. It takes time. It started like that with the wineries here. We were buying shitty cheap wines from Chile until we discovered we have 2,000 years of a wine culture here, and we make good stuff. We're producing very good wine. And the same thing with craft beers. We're drinking Heineken and Carlsberg and not local stuff. But now you can see craft breweries all over in supermarkets even, and distilleries is next. So, I think if you look at a bottle of classic and then look at a bottle of, I don't know, a Glenfiddich and next to it, which is a bit cheaper here, and then I said, okay, it could be a good whiskey, but I know those guys. Why should they pay them? I'm going to pay to the Scots guy.
Sure, and also, this is 3 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. 15 years old.
Yeah, so, it's going to be some time.
Have you considered changing the name of the distillery to Glen Milk and Honey? That might fix things for you.
No, but
Buddy.
it's a good idea. We should consider that.
Glen in Arabic is Fadi, and most of the, we don't call them emek in Hebrew, we call it Fadi. So let's go for that. It's probably going to go.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, did you want to tell us a bit about your production? I know you had a slide at the ready. I just wanted to make sure that I'm showing the slides that you want to show.
Let's go for this one.
Yeah, so let's go with the one. So
Okay.
the production. So most of the time we are not using. We are using unpeated barley, and only twice a year we are doing 2 weeks of peated barley, of peat weeks. That goes into 1 ton mash tun. So each batch is 1 ton, leads us to around 450 tons a year. Quick calculation: we are not working on weekends because we are kosher. So only 5 days a week. Fermentation time is up to 72 hours, and it depends on the period of the production. In the summer, in the hot season, we are fermenting for just a little bit less than 72 hours because it reached the point that we like it, and all the esters and congeners are already been produced by the yeast. We have now 4 stainless steel washbacks, and we ordered 2 more that will expand our capacity by around 30% in about 2 weeks' time. So expect more whiskey in 3 years and more. Double distillation, Mazel Tov. Double distillation. We're doing double distillation. The worst still is 9,000 liters, and it's really old one. We found it in Romania, laying down in some warehouse or barn.
A barn, I think.
Yeah,
big barn.
it's really old one, but it's working really good. It took time to make it run and connect all the parts that we received, but it's working really good, and we are really happy with it.
Actually, Dr. James Wan really liked the shape and the condition that we found it in, and so it's an amazing one. But it's really old one. No one knows exactly what it was made for or when it was produced. Our German importer, which is I think, fourth generation of a distilling family, he thinks it was originally for Spanish brandy, but it looks like a whiskey still, a big one, 9,000. Yeah, 9,000 liters. So it's a big one.
And then we have the spirit seal, which made specially for us by a German company called Carl. Really nice family-owned company with 130 years of production, of stills production history, and maturation. So that's, I think, the biggest part in Israel, in the hot climate. We don't do any temperature or humidity control. We use the warm and the humidity of Tel Aviv or of Israel. We'll see later that we have few places in Israel that we are maturing the casks in, but most of the casks are at the distillery. We have 3 warehouses right now with up to 2,000 casks already. It's not updated. The current capacity is around 800 casks a year, but I already told you that in 2 weeks' time we're expanding that in 30%.
So I think that we're gonna have a night shift now. So if we talked about 2 tons a day, we're gonna have another ton a day to get things going because of the we're not working on the weekends. So our capacity is gonna grow by really 1/3, and it's for us it's amazing. Of course, I need to sell it, but it's gonna take some time. Yeah.
But let's talk about maturing whiskey in hot climate or in Tel Aviv.
Yes. Can we pour our second whiskey before we do that?
I'll never say no.
Let's go for the red wine. If you have that one, or what do you
want to do? I don't have the red wine. I have the sherry. But why don't you guys do the red wine?
Okay.
And the shipment hasn't arrived yet, so I think it arrives in just a few days.
Next week.
So I can tell you, this one is the one, the one in this series, in the element series, that I like the most. You can show the slide of the element series.
Okay. There we
go.
And
the element takes the base cask that we use for the classic, which is ex-bourbon and STR, and we use it in each expression here also, but we add another element, another cask element to each one of them. And the first one that we released was the sherry, and we already have in the US. And for the sherry, because we are kosher, we had to source kosher sherry casks, and it was a problem because there is no kosher sherry or available kosher sherry in the world. So what we had to do is to start our own seasoning project in south of Spain, in Jerez. So we produced special kosher sherry for us, and then seasoned it in a cask, and it's seasonal. So every year we have a shipment of kosher sherry casks, especially made by us or for us. You can call it in a way.
But if we're talking about the sherry or the red wine now, so let's talk about the sherry. We start with the sherry, so let's talk about the sherry.
Okay.
So the sherry one, which is, where is it? There you go.
Then they have it on stream.
So the sherry one, as Tomer said, is a kosher one, but it's for us again. We're going back to the DNA of M&H, of Milk and Honey. It's not going to be a sherry bomb. Just adding some Oloroso and PX Pedro Jimenez casks to the base of the elements of the classic, which is the ex-bourbon and the SDR red wine cask. So you get those two varieties of sherry with two sizes of casks, a sherry butts of 500 liters and hogsheads 250 liters. But the thing is that you get all the sherry notes, you get the cocoa, the red fruits and the dried fruits and very rich fruits, but not overwhelming, not overpowering the whiskey, because this is what we are aiming for. We want you to feel that you're still drinking milk and honey and not only like a sherry bomb. For me, it's like eating a good, let's say, steak without covering it with a sauce that you can't feel if the meat is good or not. You still feel that the spirit is good.
Got it. So just so I'm clear, and really our listeners. So with the Element series, you're using a base, and the base is classic. So you take your classic.
I don't have to call it like that. It's not classic. We don't take the classic whiskey and then add cask. The base is the same cask that we use for the classic.
Yes.
But it's totally new blend or.
That's what I meant. I basically meant you take the classic recipe, and then you add on this element of sherry cask matured M&H or peated cask matured M&H or red wine. Is it ever a situation where you're taking that whiskey and finishing it in these casks, or is the sherry element?
Yes, it depends on it depends on how much influence of the cask we want. If we're taking fully mature cask, it will influence much more in the flavors. If you just want to cover the flavors of the ex-bourbon, we can put it in sherry finish for a few months. And the finish here is working really fast. So even 2, 3, 4 months of finish will affect the cask and give it totally new character and flavors.
Okay.
For us, even if we didn't think about it on time, we can do we can do a finish and really think 3, 4 months. That's it. You get all the characteristics in like 3 or 4 months. It's crazy, and especially with new casks.
And we made some special edition for exhibitions last year.
Yep.
That was finished for 1 or 2 months in sherry casks or in Isla cask, and it was amazing. And it got really good result. Comments.
We took the same cask and split it. Half of it was in a sherry cask and half of it was in a ex-Isla cask. One was a special edition for the London Whiskey Show. The other one was for the Paris Whiskey Live, and it's totally different. And in cask strength, and everyone really liked it. It's so different in just 2 months. 2 months. Yeah. 2 months. But it was a hot season, so yeah.
Wow. Okay. We talked distillation a little bit. I know you wanted to discuss maturation as well. I had a quick question for you before we started discussing maturation, though. You'd mentioned that your fermentation time is between 60 and 72 hours. And as I understand it, that's because, in the summertime, it's really hot, and in the wintertime, it cools down so you can adjust your overall fermentation time. Do you find that is there anything special you have to do during fermentation, especially in the summertime, to ensure the heat isn't just killing your wash, isn't killing all the yeast?
Yeah, so basically we have double jacket for the fermenters, for the washbacks, and we do keep the temperature in the level that we want it in each time of during the fermentation process. So that's what we have to do, and that's what we are doing. not to kill the yeast really quick and let it work for a while, so it will produce the congeners that we want.
Wow. Okay. And I remember, Tomer, at one time you told me you work with a very clear wash, and you do that for fruitiness. How do you get? So first off, could you explain to the people who are reviewing why you would want a clear wash as opposed to a cloudy wash, and what you're doing to achieve that clear wash?
Clear wash basically gives really good fruity characters during the fermentation process. So at the beginning, actually, it was say from James 1 that we need the clear wash, and it gives really nice fruitiness in the wash. So we kept it. During the time, I tried to filter it less and get the exact wort that I want to ferment. But it's for mainly for fruitiness.
But I think that we started, experimenting with other kinds of yeasts now to get some different kind of profile, taste and floral profile or fruitiness. So we started to play with that, and we're playing, we're experimenting with everything. It's mostly with casks, but I think now we are trying to do some experiment with yeast and even with different kinds of cuts to see what happens when you take a longer tail or stuff like that. Because it's amazing. We just talked to. We had a panel in Australia last week. In Australia, we were sitting at home with our underwear, and we were talking to Ian Chang from Kavalan and Patrick Zuidam from Millstone, from Zuidam Distillery in the Netherlands, and it was a great discussion about the high of the cut and about the experimenting with not only with different kind of casks, but with different kind of yeasts. And we are doing it all the time. It was great to hear them, too. But our regular one is very clear, as Tomer said, mostly for fruitiness, and you can feel it in new makings as well.
There's a question that came in specifically about the yeast. What do you think about that?
It is strange.
So what would you say is the overall influence, what the influence is with the different yeast strains? So as you're experimenting with these different yeast strains, what are you looking for? What are you hoping for?
Well, each yeast produce different flavors profile. Our main yeast produce a lot of fruity profile, a lot of floral profile, and we tried to produce another type of new make that is more earthy, and we actually succeed to do it, but it's still at the experimental stage. So each yeast just produce different taste profile.
I think when I was in Kentucky a few years ago, I saw the experimentals of the different kind of yeast. So they take in, from one distillery to make few kinds of blends. It was crazy because it's one distillery. So I heard about the mash bills, and then I heard about those kind of yeast. So you can actually do with 2 mash bills, 5, 6, 10 kinds of different kind of whiskeys and do your own blends. And I think that the rest of the world is learning, by the way, learning from the Americans about the use of yeasts more than we use about just grains and casks. And this is amazing for us because we can play with everything we want because we are a craft distillery, so why not with yeast too? So I think the spectrum of experimentals are huge right now. and this is something to get from the American distilleries.
That's
There
brilliant.
are the different variations of new make or whiskey's profile, and then the more cask that we will have will let us do the exact blends that we want. So it's a blending tool at the end. It also make me a lot of work to to do, but actually it's tools to produce better whiskey or to have more possibility to produce better whiskey.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. So I guess in the end, for you, Tomer, as a blender, these will just be new tools, new ingredients for you to create flavors you wouldn't have been able to if you stuck with one yeast. You have this other yeast you could play around with different whiskeys in a few years. That's very cool.
Yeah. So I think we have the different shows, the varieties of casks which we're using, and we can talk about that, and the variety of the places to age in Israel, the climate, or the terroir as we call it, or now add the yeast for that, and and the cuts, and so you can do actually in one distillery you can make 100 kind of whiskeys, so it's crazy.
Yeah. And speaking of playing around with things, I know, and I'm going to bring this slide up for you. You guys aren't only playing around with yeast, you're playing around with, and you're not just playing around with different kinds of casks. And I know, we want to talk about some of the casks that you're using, but in Israel, you have these different climate zones to affect flavor. Can we talk about this for a little bit?
Yeah, so I think that Tomer always told me that I think that Dr. Jim Swan, the first thing he fell in love with working with this project here in Tel Aviv was that Israel, it's like a playground for distillers for whiskey aging, and we are a very small country. It's around 430 kilometers from the northern point to the southern point, and of course from west to east it's even shorter. So, but we have around 5 climate zones, actually even more. But when you go from, you can see here the coastal plain, which is where Tel Aviv is. Actually, this photo is like 5 minutes walk from the distillery. So the coast is the Mediterranean environment. So it's hot and humid, but not very cold. In winter, goes down to maybe 10 centigrade, 10 Celsius, or 8 Celsius, and then can go up to 40 in the summer, but very humid, between 90% and 60% humidity, or even less, 50%. Actually, the winters are drier than the summer. And so this is Tel Aviv, which is 0 elevation. Then you go 45 minutes drive, you mean 750 meters above sea level in Jerusalem. You go up through the mountains of Jerusalem. So it's in less than 1 hour, you're in 750 meters above sea level. And then 1 hour later, you're in minus 430, minus 428 meters below sea level, which is the lowest place in the world, the Dead Sea. And the Dead Sea is, first of all, the air pressure is high because it's so low. It's very hot, very dry. You sweat like hell there, even though it's dry, because you feel that everything sits on your shoulders. It's the air dissolved, the iodine, everything is there. And this is crazy. We get around 25% answer share at the Dead Sea. We have a project there annually, yeah, and annual. And so we cannot do a full maturation there. We're just playing around and 1 year there and then get it back to Tel Aviv. But you have to understand that we fill 2 casks at the same day, same type of casks, One is aged at the Mediterranean Sea, here at the Med Sea, and the other one 2 hours away, driving at the Dead Sea. It's going to be totally different in 3 months. And it's like aging whiskey in a microwave back there, down there. And it's crazy. Now we have some another warehouse. By the way, at the Dead Sea we have around 30 casks right now. We had 20. We brought them back here, and we're gonna bottle them as a kind of Dead Sea edition. Now we have casks there, and now we have another warehouse down at the border with Egypt, which is a desert, which is very cold at night, very hot in the day. And we are planning something at the Sea of Galilee, which is, Sea of Galilee is not known as being a very low place, but it's minus 200 meters below sea level as well. But it's so hot and humid, not like at Dead Sea. So we can play with those. And of course, in Israel, you can ski down up north and scuba dive in the same day in 5 hours, 6 hours drive. So this is crazy for us, and just playing to see what that, and Tomer has to taste all of those.
Oh, that's difficult.
Yeah. We have to learn how to work with each climate zone and to get the best results from each one of them.
Yeah, when I was with you last year in June, which remind me, don't come to Israel in June. Actually, maybe I should, because I've gained some COVID weight here, and I could sweat out some of the weights. So maybe I will come in June. But I remember going to the Dead Sea with you and going on top of that, the hotel where your casks are. And one of the things that I found most intriguing about the whiskeys that are maturing in the Dead Sea is that oily mouthfeel is almost increased in the Dead Sea. And
yeah, that's because
please.
That's because it's much more extracted. Also, the flavors from the wood. A lot more. Most of the warm flavors, like cinnamon, like the wood, goes out and expands in the Dead Sea, and all the vanilla or sweet notes will go down, or you'll feel it less. And basically, it's much more extracted, and you feel a lot of flavors. And hello,
Jason? Perfect timing. Yeah, perfect timing with this question.
Yeah. So it's extracting much more flavors in less time, in shorter time, and you'll feel more of the warm flavors and less of the light citrus or vanilla flavors.
I can tell you that I think the STRs and the wine casks and even the pomegranate cask were amazing at the Dead Sea in a shorter time. But then, if we tasted something like ex-rye casks, I think it was, of course, you can feel the influence much better. But I really like the ones from Tel Aviv better. So it depends, and it's because of the hot climate and because of the extreme climate down there, and it's just. It changes all the time, so it can go in a peak in like 5 months, and then after a few months it's going to be off, and then again. So we still have to wait about that. We don't have a 3-year-old one. Actually, we have one. We have one, but it's a bourbon cask, which is crazy, but it's almost empty. Of course, it's
of course.
Not only the 25% angel share.
Yeah, the distiller share too. Yeah.
We had to test it.
So do you find that? So let me make sure I'm asking this question correctly. So a little bit of information before that. Jason and I, who of course is watching this, we're having a conversation with, I want to say it was Kirsty McCallum from Glen Murray, and we were talking about maturation. Because most people, when they think about a whiskey, they say, okay, whiskey tastes a certain way at 8 years old, 10 years old, 12 years old, and so on. But the fact of the matter is, maturation isn't linear, right? It doesn't just go this way and get better and better, or get, it kind of does this. And would you say your different climate zones make it do this even more? Do you have to pay closer attention to the casks?
The more extreme conditions that the casks are located in will make it go more like in waves and not in the linear way. Although casks are really different, and each cask behave differently from the other, and maturation is the thing now, or not now, in the whiskey production. I think if you have good new make, you have to make sure you have good cask and good conditions, or that you know how to work with the weather or with the climate that you have.
I think even in Tel Aviv, which we have very hot and humid summers and cool, not very cold, but cool and dry winters, you get even the angel share goes like that. So you lose some alcohol and then you lose water. You lose alcohol, you lose water because of the humidity and the dryness. So I think the characteristics of every cask is different. If we bottle the cask at the winter, if we bottle a cask at the summer, it's going to be a different ABV, and we're going to dilute it differently to make a blend, to make a classic, or to make an element. And it's different all the time. There's one cask we're checking all the time. The good thing is that it's 500 liters, so it's an ex-Lecce cask, and it's we're tasting it. Sometimes it's we are crazy about it, but sometimes it's really something happens to it.
So nothing left for the people.
No, nothing. No, don't expect this one. So we just.
Okay.
Maybe we'll give you one bottle.
No, but because we have really, I won't say extreme, but we are really warm and humid country, and we are maturing the whiskey in really extreme conditions. So each cask is different, and each cask goes the other way, and we have to take care much more of the cask than in cooler countries. And we have a lot more work when we're going to blend all the casks together because of the variation in the cask.
Okay. One last question, and then I'm very curious to know what Tal is about to pour. But let me ask you this, Tomer. If like Tal had said, if you're dealing with such extremes between winter and summer, and whiskeys are going to taste different depending on when you're bottling them, how does that affect your blending? And B, are you always aiming for consistency? Do you want each batch of Element Sherry or Classic to taste the same every single time? Or are you okay with showing batch variation from bottling to bottling?
Well, I'll start with the second, with B. And
okay.
I'm okay with showing slight variations between batches, as long as I think the next one will be better, or the one that the last batch is better than the batch before. But we cannot show really big variations. It needs to be the same whiskey. So we're trying to make it consistent, but better and better and better during the time, as much as we can.
I think that when Tomer does the blending with his team, and I'm interfering as always, you can see that we're tasting the last batch and then trying to make the same style. But then we say, okay, but we can do that a little bit more peaty, or we can do that a little let's go for a little bit of Oloroso or stuff like that. But it has to be the same style. But I think we keep getting better all the time. And I guess per Tomer, it's coming. You have to taste the classic. It's the best classic I ever made, and I think
No, but I think if you put two glasses of different batches, one side the other, and you taste it, you might feel some differences between batches. But if you drink it 1 month later or 1 week later, not the same time, I don't think you feel the differences between batches.
But anyway, you're getting the best. You're getting the best we ever made. So yeah.
Every time,
Yeah.
this one's the best one. I love it.
Right.
What we're drinking now is the peated one, which is just batch actually, which you got next week. You get it in the States, and this batch is
the best.
It's the best we ever made. But
It's the best one. Okay, so you're drinking. Hold on, let me just share this with everybody.
Okay.
So this is what's in your glass right now, the peated. Okay.
So originally we made this one with the ex-Isla cask, so it was a peated cask. The one you're getting is the first one we actually made with some peated barley spirit too. So it's a combination between a peated cask and a peated barley.
Ah, okay. So let's talk about that for a little bit, because I think it will go.
I didn't answer on A. What was A?
What?
Never mind. The last question. I started with B.
He started with B. He's not like a politician. He started with the one he wants to add.
Yeah.
Let's go with B.
Let's go with B.
Yeah.
So you're using predominantly, when you want to do peated whiskey, you're predominantly using peated casks to either finish your whiskey in or fully mature your whiskey in. But you're also running peated spirit. And Tal, you said this is a combination of peated spirit and unpeated spirit matured in peated casks.
Yeah.
Correct?
I think eventually we're gonna do mostly peated spirit, but in this time we don't have enough of this because it's still aging. So we have some peated spirit that came to age, and it's about 3 years. So this one is actually the first peated we're doing. This is the third batch, I think. Third batch of the peated element, which was usually again based on the same classic type of casks, and then with some spirit aged in ex-Isla peated casks. But this one has a combination between ex-peated and some peated barley, and I think it's different because it's more deep and
it's more complex.
Yeah.
You have not only one flavor, peated flavor. You have, based on the experiment, so you have a lot of sweetness in the background, and then you have two different types of peat that comes out from the barley and also from the cask. So the combination is really complex and nice, yet still balanced. It's the element.
I think that if we're talking about distillation, when we're doing peated barley, the tails is a bit more. The heart is longer because you get some of the congeners more down to the tail. So we cut a little bit, wider when we're doing the peated barley. This is the only one we're doing right now, which is wider.
If someone were to go to the store, pick up a bottle of M&H Elements peated, would they expect something that's as peated as a Lafroig or that's less peaty? Where would you say it fits in the world of peated whiskeys?
I'll say lightly peated, just as
Lightly.
the element sherry, but it's not a sherry bomb. So here it's not a heavily peated whiskey. It's lightly peated and it combines really nice with the background of the ex-bourbon casks. So it's not a heavily peated, just light. And to be honest, this type is the peaty whiskeys that I like. So that's what
I think it's for people who like peaty whiskeys, it's going to be very nice for them. It's not a pit monster. It's not a Lafroig or Ardbeg or Red Bullet, but it's. I think first of all, it's the opening for to the world of peatiness for smokiness for people that for them to drink Lafroig is like a medicine. And I think this one is the first, or it's not the first step. It's the first 5 steps. And but then it's very balanced, and I think I really like the combination between the earthiness, grassiness, and the peatiness. And sometimes when it's too smoky, when it's too peaty, it covers some of the taste. And this one is really, this one actually, the third batch is great because of the peated barley.
Wait for the fourth batch.
The fourth batch is going to be the best. Yeah.
Better than I can't wait for the 5th batch.
Yeah.
No, but they all,
do you want to discuss? We're talking casks and how casks affect flavor. Could we talk about some of the casks that you're playing around with, because your general recipes are a bit more complex than some other producers, at least in my mind. And I know you guys like to have fun with casks. So here I see this slide coming up, so I'll bring that up. Talk to us about your casks.
so welcome to fun with cast. With Sheldon Cook. So here we split it into 2 types of casks at the distillery. We have the core range, which is for the classic and for the element series. And of course, the base for all of them will be ex-bourbon STR casks. And we also add just few % of virgin oak to each one of them. Then we have the Isla red wine cask and sherry casks for each expression of the elements.
But when we drill down to this, the Isla comes from different kind of distilleries. So you take an ex Lafroig, ex Ardbeg, an ex Bunnahabhain or Kalila, it's going to be totally different. So we have to play with those. And Israeli red wines is depend of, we have, as we said, like 2,000-3,000-year-old wine culture here, and then we have wines from the Upper Galilee, the Golan Heights, or the mountains of Jerusalem. If you take a Cabernet, a Merlot, or a Carignan, or a Grenache, or now we have a Mourvedre and Cabernet Franc, it's going to be totally different. So and of course we have some white wines as well, and all of those are crazy because some of them are going to be single casks because they're so exceptional, and some of them are so different. And Tomer said we just started to taste them, and Tomer really, and myself as well, we don't like very winey whiskeys.
Yeah.
But so it was the hardest job to do this one, and I think that eventually Tomer is the one that he really think he likes the most of the elements, because it was so balanced. You feel the wines, you feel the tannins, you feel the casks, but it's really balanced and not overpowering, as what we're trying to do all over. Special editions, Tomer.
Well, so we are playing a lot with casks, and there is no cask that will say no to. But we have rum, rye, we have kosher cognac casks, which are really good. But I think the most interesting, or we saw it.
Fun with cask. Yeah, Dan. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
All right, so the pomegranate wine is the most interesting one, not only because I think we are the only one that's playing with the pomegranate wine cask.
It's a part of our culture. It's a part of our diet. It's a part of our ceremonies in Rosh Hashanah, in the Jewish New Year's, and we are drinking pomegranate juice. We're making salad out of that, and there's, I think, the only probably winery in the world that makes wines out of pomegranates is up in the Upper Galilee, in the northern part of Israel, and it's amazing. It's an amazing project there. We don't really like the wines, but we like what the casks are doing to the whiskeys. And it started off with a very good idea, marketing idea. Let's find the Israeli DNA.
Sure.
And eventually, it's the good thing that was after a few months we said, yeah, it's going to be a nice one. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah.
And we don't have enough of this because they have, in one winery, they have like 40 different kinds of SKUs.
That's funny because at the beginning when we bought the first cask, we thought what we are going to do with all these casks, and now we don't have enough. We should.
But they're also different. They have 45 port style sweet wines. They have rosé wines. They have dry wines. So we told them just bring over everything. But I can tell you that from this project, most, I think 90% of the bottling is going to go to America. I guess in the first bottling, it's going to be in the first quarter of next year because of the lead time. But it's ready, it's bottled. We're just waiting for the bottling, which is going to look something like, Dana is going to kill me for showing you, but it's going to look something like that with a fancy. So we're still waiting for this, but the whiskey is ready.
The whiskey is already bought.
Okay.
But if you look at the list,
we have a lot of surprises for the future for the ImpEx series.
Let's go for the ImpEx series, and the special editions can be different places to age, and different casks and single bottlings. So what we call the ImpEx series is mostly small batches, double casks, triple casks, or single casks at the end. And I think the first two bottlings were the Chardonnay, the white wines. The white wine was fully matured in a Chardonnay, but from the mountains of Jerusalem, from a Castel winery, Domaine de Castel, which is I think the best winery in Israel. And so very good Chardonnay, and it's like an old school with the bétonnage on the lees and everything. So you get a lot of characteristic stays in the cask itself. So we have some of those, and of course the pomegranates, and we have a very small portion of something we just tried. So we don't have enough for America, but it's going to be a kosher cognac finish from a kosher cognac house in Cognac. But we are playing with that. We're going to have some more.
Okay. Well, just let me know if you need my address again for the ones that aren't coming to America.
Send you some olive oils.
Yeah, some olive oil. We'll need some olive oil. So, Tomer, I saw that I saw there's a slide at the ready. We're talking about ImpEx. Do you want me to show it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I accidentally teased it before, but took it off screen. Hopefully, people blinked within that time.
No.
So
So,
this has me so excited. You had mentioned so pomegranate. We've talked about. Tal, you were talking about the white wine cask, the Chardonnay cask. You know, just from a whiskey geek's perspective, you know, Springbank and Glenmurray, I think, are two distilleries that have had some really good success with Chardonnay casks. There have been some long rosin Chardonnay, and Glenmurray had a standard Chardonnay release for a while. So this is really exciting from my perspective because I like that cask.
I think that they were going for finishes, and we did a full maturation.
Yours is full maturation. Okay. Oh, that's
One
great.
is a full maturation, and I think we use much better wines than they use, because this is. I'm going to send you another bottle. You have to try. You have to try the wine.
Okay.
so
Okay.
if, with the classic and the element, we bottled at 46, and we aim to do balanced whiskeys and well drinkable. Here we are going to play with cask, to bottle it cask strength, and this is our place to go crazy and to make the whiskey geeks more interesting stuff.
So I think that if you look at the craft distillery, which we're playing all the time, so we need to have the core range with the classic and the elements. So we have 3 elements now. We're thinking about the 4th one, but we're just launching. So we need. I told you we are impatient nation. So we need to think about that first. But what happens with all those crazy casks? We thought about that, and you know, it's Tomer and I talking about coffee in the morning, and then thinking about crazy casks. To call this my friend from Cognac, or to go get some white wine cask or pomegranate cask or stuff like that. So we need to do something with that, and it's not. It's really hard to do a core range out of those crazy casks or from the Dead Sea. So this is the place. This is Tomer's playground, and just to find those crazy casks that are the best casks we can get. So maybe in the future, some of those ImpEx are going to be fabulous ex Isla or fabulous ex bourbons too, but we're not sure. So we're going to start with, you know, the crazy, the IPA cask or the double stout Israeli local breweries or whatever. And so this is our place to get, you know, the footprint, I think.
One of the things I've always said about you guys is you're not having enough fun, and that concerns me. You're simply not having enough fun.
That's what I'm saying every day.
Yeah. We just found an open bar.
Yeah.
When we were waiting for midnight, and so we found an open. Everything is still closed here, so we found an open bar which was serving outside. So we went to have a little Guinness. So we're not having enough fun. Sorry.
You're not having enough fun. I want to. There's one other product that I'd like to discuss, but before we get to that, because we've discussed Apex is coming, right? The Elements peated and Elements red wine cask, that's coming as well. But yes, that's what I'm thinking about. So there is a special single cask for the US, an ImpEx selection. And let's talk about this one a little bit.
Let's drink this one first.
Yeah, I'll just pour more Element sherry. I can have that.
So this one is single cask. It's the STR1.
It's a nice story because until we bottled this cask, I honestly didn't think we'll ever bottle STR fully matured whiskey or single cask.
Oh.
Because in our climate it works really really hard, and it gives a lot of flavors. And most of the time, STR casks are, in my opinion, too extreme in flavors and too hard to drink. But sometimes we find really, really, really nice casks, and this one is really one of the best single casks that we've bottled so far.
What actually happened that we were doing sampling for ImpEx, and we tried some of those STRs. Now we usually taste the STR when they're younger. We didn't reach a lot of them with 3 years because Tomer uses them to season the blend, and then we said okay, because in the first year it's it ages like crazy. STR is shaved total and recharged. If anyone doesn't know those terms. It was developed by Dr. Gene Swan for hot climates like ours, originally for Kabbalah with the Enchang, and it just gives you a lot of characteristics and color and flavors in the first year, and then it balances. And we forgot about the balance because we always taste them in the first year, and then we had like 3 of them, 4 of them, 5 of them, and we were amazed. So we said, okay, STR is a thing that we can actually think about as a single cask or to age it more. And this one was char 1. So this one is less charred than the rest. You have 3 degrees of charness. And this one is char 1, and I think that it is crazy, and it's saying 59 or 59%, 55 ABV. And it's on the way. Next week, probably. It's going to reach America, and it's I love this one. Really, it's something that for us, thank you guys, it's opened us for the SDRs.
I'm jealous of my whiskey.
That's great. And actually, what you're talking about with the STR casks goes along with a question that that Jared had before. So when you're doing the STR cask, you're doing a 1, 2, and 3 char. You don't go beyond that. You don't do a 4 or 5 char.
We have 3 levels, 1, 2, and 3. Most of the STR casks at the distillery are 2 level.
Okay.
That's what we use mostly for the blends. But then we have 1 and 3 just to have more options and possibilities for blending. And I guess 1 will go mostly to single cask.
Yeah, we really like it. So look for this one. It's you sure we didn't keep for some for us? And,
this one.
Only 1. Okay.
How many bottles from that cask?
282.
I think you mean 200. Okay, got it. I'll store the other 82 at my house. So we are sort of nearing the end. Right around now is where we would normally enter our Q&A part of the conversation. But this is one of the things that I love about Milk and Honey, besides just loving you guys, because I just love talking with you, and I wish I could be there in that room with you. It would be great. Or in the room wherever my prom picture is. I want to be in that room.
The prom picture now it's next to the meeting room. Yeah, I'm just keep changing the spots.
So this has been great, and what's so interesting is the distillery is so young, but there is so much to talk about, and we simply won't have the time to talk about it all. But we need to talk about Levantine gin, which I had to open up now my 3rd bottle, because this has become my house gin. I think this may become my neighborhood gin. I'm going to try to convert all of my neighbors over to Levantine gin. Tomer, you shared with me the production of this gin, which I think is quite unique compared to other gins. And for people who are watching who say, hey, I came here for whiskey, you really need to pay attention to what's going on with this gin, because it's remarkable and it's delicious, and it's a gin for people who like good texture, good mouthfeel, a complexity of flavors. It's not just, pine needles in a glass. So talk to me about your gin and what you're doing to create it, to get the mouthfeel, etc.
I like to call it gin for non-gin lovers or gin for whiskey lovers. Because first of all, it was very important to us. I didn't want to produce gin at the beginning, to be honest. I wanted to focus on whiskey, and if they forced me to produce gin, so we wanted to keep it based on the same new make that we produce for the whiskey. So it's 100% barley gin, or we can call it single malt gin, and it makes it. It gives it really nice mouthfeel, very thick, and I think it's amazing. I don't know what to say about it.
So of course, because of the alcohol base of the malt, triple distillation, and of course our botanicals, our Israeli cuisine botanical. It's you get the spiciness of that black pepper and za'atar, which is I don't know if everyone is familiar with za'atar. It's like a far relative of wild oregano, and but it's more spicier oregano, which it's great just with olive oil, and of course lemons and oranges, because we are in the southern part of Tel Aviv, which is Jaffa, and if you ever heard of Jaffa oranges, it's from here. So it's all, as Tomer used to say, it's like walking in the spice market. It's very thick because of the texture, because of the malt. It's like a single malt gin. So I think it's a neat drinking gin, but for me it's great as a martini. I love my martinis.
No, but it's not just that we took all the Israeli spices and herbs and put it inside the maceration and distilled it. We did a lot of experimentation to get this unique recipe, and surprisingly, the za'atar worked really good in this gin with the other herbs, and we had a lot more, but we threw it out, and it's really nice, well balanced, and it works really good with tonic too.
One of the details regarding production that I found fascinating. So you're taking your double distilled new make, you then macerate all of the botanicals in that new make, you distill it a third time, but then after distillation, you add back in some of the new make. Am I right on that?
So it's the maceration is 48 hours, and then we distill it again with a little strainer there, like a carter head, with fresh za'atar and the lemon peels, get some more extract. And then when you get, so it's a triple distilled one. And then, because originally we're bottling it like that, with diluting it down to 46 ABV, but bottling it like that. Then we decided that it's like too heavy gin because of the oils of the single malt. So what we did is add some new make to that. So like 50% of new make, just to open it a little bit. New make without botanicals inside that. So yeah, it's just opened it, gave it a little bit more freshness, but it's still very full-bodied gin and spicy one.
Yeah, But you know what? Those Jaffa oranges come through and balance out that spice in a really nice way. And actually, a good question came up, and I think that this is perfect timing. So from Robert Horton, in a day and age when everyone goes the easy route, making gin with neutral grain spirit, however, you guys are doing 100% malted barley. Why did you go that route rather than just get neutral grain spirit somewhere and rectify it and create your gin?
As I said, it was very important to us that if we are producing other spirits, and we produce herbal liquor also, and it's all based on our new make, because I did want some connection to our whiskey. Not just buy neutral spirit and produce a gin. We could produce really nice gin that way too, but we did want the connection for the base, for our core, which is the whiskey and the new make that we produce.
We distill only barley, so if we did not do that, we did not make gin. So it's first of all, for us, we distill single malt. We distill single malt whiskey or single malt gin. We didn't buy any spirit. We don't want to buy any spirit. So it's for us, we distill everything from scratch and only barley. So the only time we actually distilled anything else was in the first lockdown, which were a shortage of sanitizers. So we distilled some kind of glucose or sugars or stuff like that, and we really wanted it to stop. So wanted to go back to distill barley. So for us, if it's not barley, nothing else.
And you know what? Maybe it was the easiest way to go and buy neutral spirit, and maybe
cheaper, probably
cheaper, and maybe we could get a better product, a better gin that way, but it wouldn't be so interesting and different like this gin. So I think we have something different and something to remember.
Yeah, I don't know necessarily that if you brought in neutral grain spirit from elsewhere to create a gin that you would make a better one. The comment that I hear more often than not when I'm pouring this is people have said, I know which gin I'm switching to, right? It turns heads. It changes minds for people who have spent years trying gins only to discover that they really dislike gins. They taste yours and they say, wait a second, this is different. There's something else.
Yeah. A gin for non-gin lovers.
A gin for non-gin lovers.
Converting people to drink gin. But I think that it's, for me, it's not. It's a whiskey drinker gin. So if you like whiskey, you're gonna like this one.
Yeah. There was a question. So I want to tend to some of the questions here. And there was one that came in a bit earlier, and I realized we didn't touch on this aspect of your production. Let me see if I can find it. If I can't find it, I'll just go by memory. So there's been a lot of chat here. Here we go. From Don Mateo. So basically, he's asking about angel share. I know you had mentioned the angel share in the Dead Sea. Can you talk about your angel share in Tel Aviv and some of the other climate zones?
Yeah, so we talked about the advantage of maturing in hot climate. There are a lot of disadvantages too, and one of them is the huge angel share that we get around 11% on average each year we lose from the cost.
But in different places around, it's of course Dead Sea. It's much more. Different. We just started with other places, so we're not sure yet. But I guess, and again, in Tel Aviv, it depends. In the summer, you lose more alcohol. In the winter, you lose more water. So it's still around 11%.
But in average, you lose around 11% from the total contents of the cask each year.
So, okay, so with that in mind, what's the oldest stock you have in your warehouse right now?
We have cast around 5 years now.
Okay.
Not a lot, because most of the ready cast we already bottled. But I think in the future, the oldest cask that we will bottle will be around 7 years, because that's the peak point when you don't lose too much and the whiskey is still drinkable, in my opinion.
Okay.
We just,
Okay.
I think we just tasted last week or this week some very old second scale cask we got from all kinds of single malt Scotch distilleries.
Mm-hmm.
Is let's say Mortlach, Alatabane, and stuff like that, where the cask was very old. So after 2.5 years, we didn't get a lot of characteristics. So we might lose a lot of angel, but we're gonna have just the balance of the wood influence to get it older this time. So we are playing with that, and the same thing with the cognac casks from which is Limousin. You know, they're more dense. It's different
Mm-hmm.
than the American one. So
Oh, the French oak, yeah.
French
Yep.
oak, yeah,
Yeah.
Limousin, and so we're gonna check that those because when you take the 400 liters of those cognac casks as a finish, it's influenced immediately. But for new make, it takes a lot of time. So maybe, and it's 400 liters, so it means it's less influence from if you compare it to the small casks, like even a cask of 200 liters. So we're gonna check it. We are aiming to do some older, but not a lot older, because it's we don't want to do limited with over maturing in maybe
Sure.
6 years or something like that.
Okay. Okay. So we got another question that came in from Travis Williams. So, are there any unique woods that are native to Israel that you've thought about using for casks?
So yes, we have unique wood. No, we don't use it because it's a protected wood, and we can't use it for casks.
Even if you said to people, "Look over there," and then you went and you chopped those trees down. Yeah.
It's the Israeli way, but no, we're not doing that. We are using all kinds of crazy. There is a study in one of the universities in Israel about original indigenous grapes from the land of Israel, which are biblical time grapes. And we have like 8 or 10 casks from those, and so it's different kind of grape varieties from King David's time, and which one of the wineries just bottled, and we are using their cask. And there's another thing, I think we can try maybe with those casks and with those varieties to get some kind of different kind of oak, but using Israeli oak is going to be very hard. There are oaks, but they're very small and they're not exactly the same oak. But we are doing an experiment with local barley now, and we're going to see what's happened with those. Yeah.
I did not even realize that there was barley growing in Israel.
Usually it goes for animal feed because
it's not so good, so don't be surprised.
Yeah.
No, but you're trying to make the best you can with it.
But probably that has so many stones in it, it almost breaks the grind. So the milk.
Yeah, it just blows it up. Got a question here from Debbie Samuels. So she was part of the original Indiegogo fund. She's trying to remember the year.
Debbie, so first, thank you and all the other founders for being so patient with us. And I hope you already got your bottle. and we started it, I think, in the end of 2012, and it moved into 2013 when we did the Indiegogo campaign.
Mm.
But we really hope you got the bottle. It was really hard to trace everyone and to send it.
Yeah, actually, people got their bottles after 6 years of waiting.
There was one that actually he ordered one for the Brit and he got it for the bar mitzvah.
Yeah.
So
That's good. Yes. So Debbie did say she has bottle number 224. So, and she's been enjoying it. So that's great. A personal question here, because I have a bottle of the Levantine gin matured in a peated cask.
okay.
Did you put new make spirit back into that peated cask? Are you looking to see what a gin finished cask would do to your whiskey?
Oh, so yes,
Yeah.
we do have some ex-gin casks, but I think it's too ginny to be called whiskey.
Okay.
So we are still considering what to do with it. But just like tequila, whiskey matured, it's too flavorful, and it affects too much the whiskey flavor, so it almost cannot be considered as whiskey.
Okay. The juniper is too strong on it.
Juniper, all the flavors, it's really different from other gins. So we're considering what to do with it.
But we'll see what happens in 3 years.
So maybe in 3 years, after it gets a lot of wood, it will be better.
When worst comes to worst, we're gonna drink it here. So we just make another martini.
Workers edition.
Yeah, exactly. Another edition.
Yeah, just save a little bit for me for when I come.
It's about time. About time you come back here.
I know, and I'm going to bring.
And you will be able to come back here. We'll be
in the States.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Well, I'm going to bring Sam with me, whether he likes it or not. I'm bringing Sam with me, and I've been telling Jason that he needs to come out too. So we'll see. We'll see if we can get some people coming out.
We'll stay here.
We're running a bit over time, but I had one last question for you.
The hardest one.
What the hardest one? If you could leave people with one thought of what milk and honey is, what would you say? What's your elevator pitch? What do you tell people about milk and honey that they'll never forget? If they can't taste it, right? If they're not tasting it right now.
I think that we're doing a badass whiskey in Tel Aviv. We're doing a very good job in Tel Aviv, and we're gonna surprise you in every drum you're gonna taste. And in just one sentence, it's gonna be, as Tomer hates it, balanced and mouth-filling, and just we're gonna surprise you all along the way.
Well, if you ask Diana to
Yeah.
answer this, it will be innovation and everything. All the
The marketing guys. Yeah, the marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But honestly, I would say just like Scotch, but in Tel Aviv. We can produce really good single malt whiskey that is not. It's just as good as Scotch here in Tel Aviv, and we will surprise you.
See, and this is why I ask you and not the marketing department. These are the answers that I'm looking for here. That's perfect. Tal, Tomer, thank you both so much for joining. It's always a treat talking with you guys, and I miss you both. I think, Tomer, the last time I saw you was in the Netherlands at Maltstock, right? Yeah. I saw a very drunken Tomer.
What's
What's that?
This year I had a cabin in Malstock, and then
Oh, did you? Oh, you can't do that. You'll just be sleeping
No,
with
no.
Germans. You can't do that.
I know. No, but Malstock is one of the best events in the world of whiskey. And see you next year, maybe before you reach Israel or after, I don't know. But I'll be in next Malstock, definitely.
Guys,
Good.
we really want to see you in person. I think it's enough from the whole thing, the pandemic and everything, and it's enough. I think we had our laughs, we had everything, and we all understood we're gonna be good from now on. Please, let us drink together, not by Zoom or anything. Please, just finish with that.
That is the perfect way to end it. We've had enough. Let's just get together and
Enough.
drink. Looking forward to that.
Yes.
Cheers. Thank you both so much.
Thank you, Joshua.
What's that?
I said just thank you, Joshua. That's it.
And we
Oh.
love you.
We love you.
Oh, right back at you. I love you both. Take care, gents.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
So, yeah, thank you so much to Tal and Tomer for joining. What a treat it was spending time with them, and I hope those that are watching will have a chance to spend some time with them. We will most definitely be bringing them to the U.S. They're desperate to come out. I know we have some Canadians in the house, Graham Usher being the loudest and proudest of them in the room. Hopefully they'll be getting out to Canada as well. Before we head out here, I just wanted to let people know the remainder of the ImpEx Distillery Deep Dive series, the calendar of events, as it were. So what do we have coming up? This Wednesday, we will have we'll have Chris Udy, who will be talking about Oishi in Fukano, which is whiskey out of Japan from a rice-based distillate. So that is November 11 at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 5:30 p.m. Pacific Time. Fast forward a week, November 18, we'll have Ollie Chilton, who is the master blender for Port Ascaig. So if you like single malt whiskey, if you like single malt whiskey from Islay specifically, you'll want to come for that one and hear how Ollie puts these whiskeys together. And it also helps that Ollie is just a lovely guy to be around and a lovely guy to learn from. So lovely, in fact, that we're going to have him 2 weeks in a row on December 2nd. I can't believe we're already talking December. But December 2nd, we'll have Ollie Chilton back to talk about Single Malts of Scotland, which is an independent bottling line, almost always bottling single casks, though they do have some sort of small batch releases. And we'll talk about independent bottling and Ollie's selections and his palate. So if you have any interest in independent bottlings, please join that. From a personal perspective, Single Malts of Scotland is in my top 3 of all time of favorite independent bottlers, and Ollie is just a good guy. I love being around him. So hopefully you'll join that. And because Chris Udy is also as lovely as Ollie Chilton is, we will have him back again on December 9. And this time, instead of talking about Japanese rice whiskey, he's going to be talking about whiskeys from the Matsui brand. So Matsui is a single malt producer in Japan. So they've got single malts under the Matsui brand, pure malts, Japanese pure malts under the Kuriyoshi brand, and then Japanese blends under the Tottori brand. So we'll get a good education there. I think people have a lot of assumptions about what is and what is not Japanese whiskey, and Chris is there to set us all straight and give us the history. And then finally, on December 16, that's our final Wednesday, I will have Jason Johnston Yellen here, who is my business partner with Single Cask Nation, and I get to interview my own business partner, and I'm going to grill him. I'm going to grill him hard. We'll see what sort of answers he comes up with. So if you enjoyed the Single Malts of Scotland one coming up, hopefully you'll also enjoy the Single Cask Nation one, which will cap off all of these events. Ladies, gentlemen, thank you all so much. We really appreciate you coming out, especially on a Sunday. Kind of an odd day to do it, but a good excuse to drink, good excuse to learn, and that's it. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Enjoy the coming week, and hopefully we'll see you on Wednesday with Chris Udy, and we'll learn about Fukano and Oishi and Japanese rice whiskey. Slanj, L'chaim, Prost, all of the other salutations. Take care, people. Bye. Oh, I got to figure out how to turn this off. How do we turn this off? That's how we turn this off. We press button.